Alright, so now we're going to put together our animation. So I have my sprite things here I'm going to play with in a minute. But I'm going to show it on this other guy first. I think the other guy is kind of cool. So you import your footage into After Effects. And what we need to do is pre-multiply with black. So we hit OK. Double click. And then I have this other guy, which is my color gremlin. Make sure pre-multiply is hit. Hit OK. So now we can just take one at a time, go to right-click, interpret footage main, set this to 24. Right-click, interpret footage main, 24. Okay. Then I'm just going to grab both of these and just drop them into my comp. It'll say single composition, everything else is good. Hit OK. Alright, so now I have my colored gremlin guy, and I have my particles. So I'm going to just make sure that my particles are on top. So now, this is a little bit different than the assignment we had. I'm just going to hit play. And essentially I've used sprites, but it's obviously in a different format than what we had before. But it still works. We're still getting transparency, we're still getting depth, we're still getting the same information we would have the other way. And some of these are really cool where they fly like right by the camera. Okay, so essentially that would be it. Okay, we could just drop that in and then it works. But obviously we want to do something extra to these things, to the particles. So I'm on my particle layer. I'm going to go to Effect. I can go to, I always forget where it is. I'm going to go to my presets and go to Colorama. There it is. So I'm going to drop Colorama on my particles. And Colorama is one thing we can use that allows us to go in here and pick some colors here. So right now it's using the intensity right there. And it's mapping in these colors. So where you see certain values, you're seeing more or less intensity. So what we can do is I could repeat this so we have like extra things in here, or I can reduce it to kind of isolate it. I can choose from this and pick a different setting. There's these cool ones down here like copper or fire. And sometimes you can get some pretty cool results just using stuff like this. You can see now these kind of look like they're little like fiery things. We can blend it with the original so it's maybe not as strong as the original or as the changed one. We could adjust the shifting of where this is at. So as I adjust this phase, I'm basically like adjusting where those particles are laying on this circle. Okay, or I could say, okay, I want to use the lightness, or I want to use the saturation, or I want to use the alpha channel. Reset that back to 0. Okay, so I can play with these different settings to get obviously different results. Okay, and that one actually doesn't look too bad. If I set this to get phase from alpha, there's intensity, there's alpha. Alpha looks better. So I could use something like alpha to get this in here. And typically there is, let's see, pixel selection, matching tolerance. No, that's not that. Yeah, I can just pull this down if I needed to. What I could also do with this is I could duplicate this. So I'm going to take this particle layer and duplicate it. So now I have two particles on top of each other. On the top one, I'm going to get rid of Colorama. And I'm going to add in, under trap code, star glow. Okay, so I'm going to turn off this bottom particle just so I can see what this one's going to be doing. So with star glow, essentially it's going to make little like glimmers or glistening things on here. So if I, again, choose one of these things like alpha, you can see how alpha just like all over the place, I have star glow. In this case, I'd want to use something like luminance or lightness, I think would be one acceptable one. But I don't really see anything. Even if I zoom in close, I really don't see any star glow happening. So I'm going to go to my threshold under the pre-process and just pull it down. And the threshold is kind of like a picker of how luminance, how luminant you need something to be. Okay, so now I'm kind of isolating some of those areas. And then I could play with like the streak length. I can play with the boost lights, so those are a bit brighter. And the cool thing with this is that as these particles are kind of coming off of him, they're that bright reflective or bright star glowy color, and then as they start to die, they turn into that gray. Okay, and that's just a matter of how I set up the shaders and all that inside of Maya, where we played with the opacity. Okay, so maybe I'll take this down to 2. Take my streak length down to 4. There we go. Okay, so now I have this cool thing here. I have these other things on top. So I could play with different modes and see if we can get, different results that are pleasing. All right, so I'm just going to use Shift plus sign. And I can cycle through these different modes and see if there's something that really kind of catches my eye. I think I kind of like that hue one a little bit. Let's see what that's going to look like. Might be a little bit too strong. I think add might be good. Oh. Oops. Now that one might be good there. Now I am getting a little bit of black on the outsides of these. And it looks like it's coming from my bottom one here. So it might be even just this color here being black, where maybe I could just play with this phase shift to get rid of that, or maybe even hey, that's what that is. Alright, so let me actually just get rid of just making these other areas maybe a bit more transparent. There we go. So I took that black that was hidden under there and I just took its alpha channel down. I think that's going to be a little bit nicer thing there. Adding on top of our little star glow. And I can even change in here the kind of mode that the star glow gets done. See, there's normal, there's none. That way I just get literally the star glow only. Like I might be able to play with the threshold a little bit more. Kind of isolate some of these. There we go. And then I can always add something like smart blur to this. Oops. Yeah, that was right. Add smart blur to this just to give me a little bit of fuzziness on these. Here it is, smart blur off, smart blur on. And I would also add this smart blur to my other particles. It helps just kind of isolate them individually. Not seeing a huge effect from those particles. It's weird. The other thing I can do if I'm not really seeing a huge effect with that is I can go to, let's delete these. I can grab both of these, make sure they're both on, pre-compose them, layer pre-compose, particles, and then add the smart blur to that. There it is. It's going the wrong way with the threshold. You can see the smart blur just kind of takes some of that detail away. And you can play with other blurs too, depending on what you're doing. You may see that camera lens blur might provide you with a better look to it. Sometimes just going in here and going to something like a cross blur. Yeah. I'll be like kind of customize what you want your blur to look like. And go. So we still have the detail, and we still have some of those other things going on. Okay, you can still see these little glimpses of star glow happening inside here. Okay, so essentially it's going to be the same exact thing for your one that you're doing. Just in this case, I've used this little gremlin guy because I think it's kind of like a cooler way to do it. It's obviously it's a little bit different setup than what we went through, but essentially it's the same thing. There's lots of different things you can do with particles to do different kinds of shapes and whatnot. Alright, so once we have this, it's just a matter of now just going to add this to the render queue. Lossless, QuickTime, format options, H.264. Save it. Sarcona. Sprite animation. Gremlin. Fall 13. Then I hit render, and then away she goes. Okay. I'm going to just let it zip through real quick. Alright, so now some things you can do with your other particles. I'm just going to import those guys. Remember we had several different iterations. Still pre-multiplying. So I'm just going to go in and grab one of each of the files. Doesn't matter which one you grab in After Effects. If you're doing F-check, it does matter. And still go through and set their frame rate to 24. The reason we're doing that is just so we get an extra, maybe a couple seconds out of this. There we go. So I'm just going to drop these into here. Okay. And so now what we have is several different iterations of this. So we have first our, let's see which one, this one dropped in first. This one has, I think, a little bit of fuzziness to it. They all had some level of fuzziness to it. I think that one might have been our clearest one. And this one was a little bit fuzzier. And that was even more fuzzier. Okay. So what we can do is we can use these as an additive process. So you see how I have three different things of this, three different versions. And when I just drop these in here, they add to each other and just kind of make this nice little animation. I could also take these if I just had one, and I could duplicate it several times and get these things to look brighter. But what happens is it turns out a little bit staler because we don't have a kind of a variation between them. Where this way we kind of have a little bit of variation between these three, even though it may just be slight. Okay, you can see here we have a little bit of blurriness. And this one, crystal clear, sort of. Okay, now we do have to also look at this. When we bring in sprites, my other one didn't have it for whatever reason, but this one does. 962 by 542. So when we bring in these things sometimes, they come in at the wrong size. So we just want to make sure we go to our composition settings and set it to 960 by 540. Otherwise things aren't going to line up correct. And then make sure I scale these down. To fit correctly. Yeah, that's close enough. Okay. And then we can do the same kind of thing that we did on the other one, which is add some different kinds of effects. You can use different tools. I mean, I'm showing you one method. You could use shine on one of these, and you can get some neat effects. Maybe boost it up just so I can make sure you can see it. And then depending on where I put this source point, take the boost light up even more just so, because I'm further away now. So I really have to kick that light up. There you go. I just want to make sure you can see it. I can see it, like, it's probably like overkill. Okay, take the opacity down or whatever. And that's only on this bottom one. Okay, so I can have these other top two doing something else. I could add on the middle one, I could add star glow. And I play with the threshold. There it is. So now I have a little bit of star glow happening, a little bit of the shine happening. I'm going to boost that light just so you can see it still. There we go. Lots of bling. And you can see that star glow is even like sparkling because our particles sparkled. So you can see how we're kind of flickering and some of these things are kind of popping in and out. And that's not popping, but fading in and out. That's kind of what we wanted when we set those shaders up. And I accidentally moved my layer, so I can move back. Okay, so don't limit yourself to just what I'm showing. Play around with some of these things. I don't know if Echo Space will do anything. Let's get rid of Star Glow. I'm going to turn these other two off, just so I can isolate the effect of this. Oh, there we go. I have to set up my layer decay, or delay. Alright, I grabbed the wrong... I didn't want echo space. I wanted time echo. There we go. I don't know what that echo space one was. I've never used it before. Okay, number of echoes, echo time and space, -0.001. Let's go 5. There we go. So now what we're getting is a little bit of actual like extra motion blur on these things because it's kind of blurring where they were and where they're going. And I can decay this a little bit. Decay. Oops. There we go. Now it's obviously going to change the color of this. I can change one of these, say maximum or minimum, or a blend. Okay, and just see which one is going to look the best. Add is just going to literally add all these things together. And maximum is just going to take the maximum value of it. And just so you can kind of see even better what this is doing, I'm going to set this to -0.1. And you can see how it's kind of sampling from all those previous frames in order to get this animation. So it gives me like a thicker trail, and I get these extra like shooting things happening, which are very, very neat. That could be another addition to what we're doing here. Star glow on there, sure. And the more stuff you add, the longer it's just going to take. That's just the fact of it. And obviously that star glow is like overkill now. Okay, so there's lots of different things you can do. As a student, you should always go out there and explore other things and find ways that you can kind of add to this. But the cool thing is with doing these several layers is that we have several different iterations of stuff happening. Okay, so we have on this layer we have basically nothing, it's just flat, just added on top. And then we have this little star glow with an echo on there, and on the bottom one we have the shine. Which again, the shine obviously for the video purpose has been jacked up. But I would want that to be a lot lower. In my mind, I'm seeing it at like 70. But with... Where is my color? There it is, colorize. But with colors that kind of make more sense to this one. Not aura. There's a blue one that looks good. Not deep sea. USA. Obviously I can make my own, but it's always best to kind of jump into here, find a good one. Yeah, that'll be sufficient for now. And I could change some of these colors. Let's see, highlights. Only using 3 of these colors, so I don't have to care too much about it. There we go. So there we get a really cool effect. Like I said, you know, you play with these things. Even if you go to websites like Creative Cow or you go to videocopilot.net, you can really find some really cool stuff. There's no Light Factory, image mode. There's lots of things you can do in here. Okay, so play around with it and see how you want to blend that together, and that's it. Make your movie and turn it in.